Living History Farms, that is where his father-in-law happened to, I guess,
founded the place.
Founded Living History Farms. So we'll see you for that tomorrow.
Time now for NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Have a good night tonight.
Good night.
John Gotti, the Teflon Don, guilty on 12 counts. Tuberculosis, a growing epidemic among health workers. And this is a test of new techniques for crash rescues.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw, reporting tonight from NBC News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. This time the wise guy smirk disappeared. John Gotti, the modern godfather, the so-called Teflon Don. He always escaped the big convictions in the past, but not today. Guilty of murder and racketeering, 12 counts, and now facing a long time in jail. NBC's expert on the mob is John Miller. He's at the federal courthouse in Brooklyn tonight where the verdict was announced. John?
Well, Tom, John Gotti's 7-year reign as the boss of America's largest Cosa Nostra family made him the best-known gangster since Chicago's Al Capone. It also made him a big target. In a hushed courtroom, Gotti sat and heard the forelady of an anonymous jury say guilty. Gotti and his co-defendant were charged with being boss and underboss of the Gambino crime family. The best evidence that Gotti was a mob boss came from his own mouth over FBI bugs.
This is going to be a Cosa Nostra till I die. Be it an hour from now, or be it tonight, or 100 years from now when I'm in jail. It's going to be a Cosa Nostra.
During the 6-week trial, the jurors heard Gotti's threats.
You tell this punk, me, John Gotti, tonight, to sever your mother head off.
The conversations were backed up by videotapes that showed that Gotti was close to the cast of characters the jury only heard about on the tapes. And they saw how close Gotti was to Sammy the Bull Gravano. He was promoted from consigliere to underboss while the FBI listened in.
So I'm asking you, how you feel? You want to sing this good again? Or you want me to make you official underboss, acting boss?
Prosecutors made a deal with Gravano. There must be no honor among thieves because Gravano took the stand and impassively testified for days, linking Gotti to each murder and telling the jury how he and Gotti planned and then watched the hit on mob boss Paul Castellano.
The jury did not give adequate consideration to the defense arguments, did not give more than that, adequate consideration to the evidence.
He took it like a real man, and he has vowed that the fight is not over, ladies and gentlemen, and it's not.
Today, another milestone in the fight against organized crime. The Teflon is gone, the Don is covered with Velcro, and every charge in the indictment stuck.
It's been a long road. Justice has been served, and it feels awfully good. Thank you.
He didn't win fair and square. He played a game that he didn't play fair and square. My father is the last of the Mohegans. They don't make men like him anymore, and they never will.
Okay, John Gotti convicted here of RICO counts, including 5 murders. They carried 20 years apiece. It is likely at the time of sentencing on June 23rd that John Gotti will be sent away to federal prison for the rest of his natural life. Tom?
John Miller, what about the future of the mob? Do federal authorities believe that they've now busted it?
Well, certainly here in New York, where we have the 5 most influential Cosa Nostra families in the country, those families are now on the ropes. 4 of the 5 crime bosses are now in jail or awaiting trial, and the 5th, of course, is being targeted. So the mob in New York is on the ropes right now.
And what about the future of Sammy the Bull Gravano, the man who turned state's evidence and ratted on his former boss, John Gotti? What happens to him now?
Well, Sam Gravano has to cooperate as part of his agreement, testifying in New York and around the country if the Justice Department desires for the next 2 years. During that time, he'll be in federal custody, and when he's in a jailhouse setting, it'll be in what they call a rat jail, a place where cooperating witnesses are kept. That's mob slang for those kind of places. But after that, he'll go into the Witness Protection Program, and the program's history shows if you play by the rules, you'll make it okay.
All right, thank you very much. John Miller tonight in Brooklyn at the courthouse where John Gotti was found guilty today. Another major item on the crime calendar tonight, methadone. It's a heroin substitute available in almost every state in this country as a means of controlling drug addiction. However, as NBC's Jim Cummins reports now, the solution is becoming a huge problem.
Methadone, the legal synthetic drug used to ease withdrawal from heroin, has always been controversial. The controversy is growing following newspaper reports that more Houston area residents died from using methadone last year than from all of the opiates it's meant to replace, including heroin. The Texas Health Department called a public hearing to consider a crackdown on methadone clinics. Janet Laird testified that 2 of her sons overdosed on methadone, that the cure is worse than the addiction.
You take drugs off the shelf that are bad for us. Methadone is killing our people. It's killing our families.
Methadone is a synthetic narcotic, a dangerous drug that can be taken orally, is dispensed at clinics where addicts are supposed to be screened before they are allowed to take home a 6-day supply of the drug. The problem is methadone often becomes just another street drug after that. Former heroin addict John Carrick says he used to deal methadone all the time.
So you end up with drugs to sell, whether it's to pay the rent or to buy other drugs or whatever you want to do, or just take it down the street and trade it for whatever drug you want.
The police say methadone is bought, sold, and traded in this neighborhood. They say addicts will often use it with other drugs, especially cocaine, and that can be dangerous. There is big money to be made in the methadone business. 18 of the 20 clinics in Houston are private, for-profit operations. They are licensed by the government and are supposed to be supervised by a physician. But clinic operator Dr. Tom Pate says that's often not the case.
The role of the physicians is sometimes so peripheral as almost to be non-existent. It's hiring somebody's license.
All of this angers Al Dugan, whose son was a methadone addict. Dugan wants to close methadone clinics.
Giving license to methadone dealers makes no more sense than giving license to crack, cocaine, or heroin dealers. What's the difference?
The Texas Health Department will decide what to do with methadone clinics at its meeting next month. Jim Cummins, NBC News, Houston.
When Nightly News continues in a moment, Robert Hager takes us through a terrifying airline crash. It's a test. We'll show you what we learned from it.
In medical tests, people fell asleep faster and slept better with Unisom than without. Unisom for faster, better sleep.
Grandma's got a date. What's a date?
Closeness. You might hesitate if you wore a diaper. So Johnson & Johnson created Serenity Guards. Bladder control protection so advanced, it holds as much as something 5 times its size and stays dry, locking liquid in. And now there's a new Serenity Guard, Super Plus, with even more super absorbance. So if you've been looking for extra protection, give yourself hugs for discovering new Serenity Super Plus.
Tylenol users discover a powerful name in aspirin-free pain relief.
It took away my headache. Aspirin-free Anacin worked as well as Tylenol.
Like Tylenol, aspirin-free Anacin is 100% aspirin-free acetaminophen, so it's gentle on your stomach.
Now I have a choice.
The deadly return of tuberculosis in this country. Health professionals told a congressional subcommittee today that TB now is a nationwide threat triggered by homelessness, drug abuse, and by AIDS. NBC's chief medical correspondent Robert Bazell is here with more on this story tonight. Bob?
Tom, figures just out show that there were more than 26,000 reported cases of TB in the U.S. last year. And all indications are there will be many more this year.
The TB epidemic has added a frightening new dimension to the risks faced by health workers.
I think the biggest surprise that we've come upon in the last few months is the realization that an extraordinary number of health professionals are being infected with the tuberculosis germ.
Skin tests reveal that in many big city hospitals, 1 out of 5 interns and residents is getting infected with the TB germ every year. Dr. Nicholas Skipataris, a resident at Bellevue in New York, had a positive test.
It's a risk of the profession, I think. I mean, we're doctors have always been exposed to things.
Healthy people with a positive skin test have about a 10% chance of developing active tuberculosis. Susan Weiss, a nurse at Bellevue, got active TB.
I had a cavity on X-ray, and it was definitely there.
Most active cases can be treated, but new TB strains are appearing that are resistant to available drugs, and experts say these already are infecting health workers.
So I'm afraid that we're inevitably looking at a long-term harvest of very significant morbidity and unfortunately probably even some mortality as we saw at the turn of the century.
TB is spreading through hospitals, mostly through AIDS patients, such as Erwin Areola. Because of their weakened immune systems, people with AIDS are highly susceptible to TB. Once they have TB, they can pass it on to others, by coughing and sneezing. The TB epidemic will grow worse as AIDS cases increase. Many doctors are hoping for better TB treatments and preventions. But federal health officials today told a congressional subcommittee those won't be available soon.
The problems at the research level will in fact take years. I don't think that we're going to have adequate drugs in the next couple of weeks. We're not going to have a vaccine this year.
Patients in hospitals, of course, are also at risk. People with AIDS face the greatest danger, but there is an increasing risk for all hospital patients. Tom?
Thank you, Robert. Another kind of research tonight into airliners that burst into flames when they crash in San Francisco today. A real-life exercise in survival, a test. NBC's Robert Hager was there.
This was the exercise, an old 707 scrapped by TWA after a hard landing, now representing a cargo plane. Pyrotechnicians loaned by Star Wars producer George Lucas prepared to set it ablaze. It would be unmanned. Nearby, an old DC-8 retired by United, now representing a passenger plane in a mock collision on the runway. High school volunteers were made up as victims aboard the passenger plane, which would not be burned. Real passengers on real flights in and out of San Francisco were forewarned the activity on the runway would only be a test. Preparation for a real accident. Like this 1990 crash of a Colombian airliner on New York's Long Island, where rescuers brought out 85 alive. Or last week's U.S. Air commuter crash at New York's LaGuardia, survived by 24 of 51 aboard. So soon after that, today's exercise had a terrifying look of reality.
Attention all units, exercise alert 2 on progress.
Firemen tried out the latest techniques for suppressing flames with foam. It took about 2 minutes, though it's not clear if anyone aboard would have survived. Now, mock victims streamed from the nearby plane not set afire.
Approximately 150 inches. We haven't got the passengers yet. So we have one fatality on board the passenger aircraft.
New carts were tried instead of traditional stretchers, which tie up 4 rescuers to carry a single victim. The federal government requires airports to stage emergency drills at least once every 3 years, but today's is believed to have been the most realistic ever attempted.
Rescuers here hope they'll never have to use the skills they honed today, but if disaster should strike, today's practice could cut down on confusion and delay and save lives. Robert Hager, NBC News at the San Francisco airport.
On Wall Street today, concerns over March unemployment figures pushed stocks lower today in moderate trading.
You see the word healthy on a lot of things these days, and the thing you got to wonder is, how do they get that way? Well, this is something new. Healthy Favorites ham from Oscar Mayer. This is the real thing, nothing funny, none of the good stuff taken away. It's real, slow-cooked ham that's naturally low in fat and only 14 calories a slice. New Healthy Favorites from Oscar Mayer. Who else would you trust?
We just put 70,000 miles on a Plymouth Acclaim, the lowest priced 6-passenger car in America. Then we asked 100 drivers to compare the Acclaim with this new Honda Accord for comfort, performance, and overall superiority. 59 out of 100 preferred the Acclaim overall. We were blown away by the results, and so was the Accord.
Now get $1,000 cash back on Plymouth Acclaim.
If you're serious about whole grain, remember, Wheaties has it. These guys don't. Better get your whole grain.
You better eat your Wheaties.
What a feeling, feeling fresh.
Fixodent Fresh has a crisp, clean feeling and a stronger hold than any other cream adhesive. A fresh feeling and stronger hold are 2 great reasons to Fixodent and forget it.
Demonstrators took to the streets again today in Libya protesting sanctions imposed Tuesday by the United Nations. Hundreds turned out targeting embassies of countries that voted against Libya. The country is being pressured to turn over 2 suspects in the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103. Elsewhere in the Middle East, what happens to the weapons that Israel buys from the United States? Well, that was addressed by a State Department report today. and the controversy was not resolved. NBC's Martin Fletcher is in Tel Aviv tonight.
For Israel, good news and not so good news. First, on charges that Israel sold American patriots to China, innocent.
The Israeli government has a clean bill of health on the patriot issue.
But before Israel had time to celebrate, more charges, potentially more damaging. A State Department report said an unidentified country, widely believed to be Israel, may have been transferring U.S. arms to third countries since 1983. They include China and South Africa. Beyond government denials, Israel won't comment, but former officials will.
This is irrelevant because if it's our technology, if it's our ownership, we do whatever we want to do or we wish to do.
Charges that Israel sold deadly cluster bombs to Ethiopia. Privately, officials here call all the charges old hat.
We have cluster bombs which are not the cluster bombs that were developed and produced in the United States.
Among U.S. complaints that Israel perfected an air-to-air refueling station based on U.S. technology and then sold it to third countries. That Israel based its Popeye air-to-ground missile on U.S. technology and sold it. All denied by Israel. But the question of transferring U.S. technology to third countries cannot be dismissed so lightly. The report describes what it calls a systematic and growing pattern of reselling U.S. technology and says it must stop. Martin Fletcher, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
And the last surviving star of an American classic film is gone. Paul Henreid, Victor Laszlo in Casablanca. His family announced today that he died Sunday in California. He was 84 years old. Henreid starred in dozens of films, but his best-known role was Laszlo, the noble World War II resistance fighter who, in the end, won Ingrid Bergman from Humphrey Bogart. You must remember this.
We Americans have some very particular ideas of what we want in our cars and trucks.
I feel like the car's like wrapped around.
One company gets input from customers at every stage of new product development to find out exactly what they're looking for. That may be why 5 of the top 10 selling vehicles in America are built by the same company, Ford Motor Company.
With your help, our quality gets better all the time.
Ford Motor Company. Quality is job one. It's working. It's working.
These are the world's best gardeners, champion gardeners in the Guinness Book of Records. What's the secret of their success?
I grew my world record chrysanthemum with Miracle-Gro.
With Miracle-Gro, I get twice as many tomatoes as I used to get.
Just look at my 279-pound watermelon.
And Miracle-Gro is that good.
Hey, if world champion gardeners depend on Miracle-Gro, shouldn't you?
Now the Miracle-Gro No Clog 2. It's 3 feeders in one. It's a gentle feeder, a wand feeder, a fast feeder for lawns and shrubs.
You see this waiting room? A lot of those are sinus problems, not just colds. But this is tough on both. Advil Cold and Sinus. Sinus?
Yeah.
What a surprise.
Advil Cold and Sinus, advanced formula for the cold and sinus season.
Somebody put these Harvest Crisps in the wrong box.
Delicious.
Right, so what's a delicious cracker like that doing in a box that says low fat, no cholesterol?
Beats me.
I mean, if Harvest Crisps are so good for you, how come I can't stop eating them?
I don't know, hon.
I love them.
Ace Best Buys are terrific values every month, like these.
Ace offers a full line of lawn care products, including premium turf fertilizer for $3.99 and weed and feed for just $4.99.
Ace Best Buys. Another reason Ace is the place for you.
Don't get hit by an annual fee. Carry the card that doesn't charge one. And keep yourself out of the hole. It pays to discover.
Jerry Brown found himself on the receiving end today. He was heckled by a Jewish audience in New York over Jesse Jackson, his likely choice as a running mate. And tonight, NBC's Lisa Myers takes a look at Brown's latest political ads.
Former Governor Jerry Brown of California.
This is what Jerry Brown said last September in denouncing the state of American politics.
Serious discourse is drowned in a flood of savage 30-second spots and brief sound bites. Truth is exiled, while propaganda becomes the currency of public debate.
But guess who now has one of those savage 30-second spots on in New York? Jerry Brown. And in part of the ad, as Brown would say, truth is at exile.
And while Bill Clinton plays golf at a restricted all-white club, Arkansas remains one of only 2 states with no Civil Rights Act. Now that's slick.
That's also misleading, because Clinton tried to get a civil rights law through the legislature last year. Another Brown ad distorts Brown's own record as governor of California.
Against conventional wisdom, he took California from the 5th highest tax state to the 24th.
Again, misleading. The truth is that the main reason taxes plummeted in California is because voters revolted and passed a ballot initiative known as Proposition 13.
Prop 13 was a tax revolt that took place against Jerry Brown's policies, against his failure to deliver tax relief, against his mishandling of the state's finances.
And Proposition 13 won despite Brown's vehement opposition.
I really think that it is a human tragedy if hundreds of thousands of people are laid off to give corporations tax breaks.
Bill Clinton is using his ads in New York to try to undo negative opinions of him. One aims to counter the impression that he is the candidate of the establishment.
I have spent my life fighting for change, taking on the establishment to improve people's lives.
Another tries to deal with lingering doubts about his character.
He stood up to the tabloids, the false attacks, told the truth, and shown real character. Bill Clinton.
Both ads essentially reintroduced Clinton to voters by giving them positive information about him.
Voters know everything about the 3 M's, that is marriage, marijuana, and his military record. They don't know the 3 E's, the education, the effectiveness, and the electability.
So far, the ads here have been tough, but not vicious. And they are positively tame compared to the political brawl going on in the streets. Lisa Myers, NBC News, New York.
And John Chancellor has been doing his own watching these candidates. John?
Tom, presidential candidates. Nobody loves the Constitution more than they do until they open their mouths. And then most of them sound like kings, monarchs who can simply issue royal decrees. The genius of the Constitution is that it limits the power of the president. The White House has to work with the Congress to get things done, but you rarely hear the presidential candidates say that. Jerry Brown on public works jobs. Roosevelt started the Civilian Conservation Corps. I would start that as one of the first acts of my presidency. He would start that? Brown could have said, maybe I can get the Congress to set up this huge new jobs program, but I might not succeed. Bill Clinton on health care. In a Clinton administration, employers will be required to provide health care for their workers or pay into a public fund. Employers will be required. Clinton could have said, I'll give it my best shot, but it will take a lot of work to get the Congress to pass this. Pat Buchanan wants the last congressional pay raise to be rolled back by 50%. Does anybody think that President Buchanan could order the Congress to do that? George Bush makes fewer of these claims than the others because he's already president. If he said he could govern by decree, people would laugh. But nobody laughs when the other candidates make these regal promises and the campaigns roll on with the candidates talking as though they're running for king, not president. Tom?
Thank you, John. Back in a moment with another source of wind, not politics this time.
Where do you want to be in 20 years?
Well, my father worked for the same company for 39 years. He got 2 weeks vacation, but we never traveled far. He was saving to put 3 kids through college. At 65, he retired. At 67, he died. How can I invest so that after my kids graduate, I can enjoy the second half of my life?
You can get there from here with Shearson Lehman Brothers.
People who hurt from arthritis are discovering a safer aspirin, Acclaim.
On a bad day, I can take up to 8 and not be concerned about irritating my stomach.
It's the orange coating that makes it safer.
Plain and buffered aspirin dissolves in the stomach where aspirin can cause damage. But Acclaim's safety coating helps protect your stomach from aspirin's damage.
So I'm not worried taking the maximum dose.
Every 6 hours, pow, pow. For minor arthritis pain, the safer aspirin is Acclaim. And that's the truth.
In Japan, they buy a remarkable new car that comes with 7,041 miles already on it. The Honda Accord from Marysville, Ohio, the best-selling American-made car in Japan.
outstanding service. One reason we're the world's largest cruise line. Royal Caribbean, the grand resorts of the 7 seas.
Royal Caribbean.
Our daily difference now, in the 90s. How do you produce energy without burning fossil fuels? Well, the answer is blowing in the wind. NBC's Bob Dotson.
For years, wind power has been long on promise, but short on results.
The industry in its early stages really didn't understand the power of the wind and the forces of the wind. And the early machines that were built just were not sound from an engineering standpoint, and that's why a lot of them literally fell apart.
Those that did work were too expensive. These new high-tech turbines are about to change all that.
Most of our electricity still comes from coal and gas and burning oil. But now, for the first time, energy from windmills will cost no more. And advanced designs could make wind power even less expensive than fossil fuels by the end of this decade.
The price for wind power has plummeted in the past 10 years, from 50 cents per kilowatt hour to about a nickel. And that makes it competitive without tax incentives. Computers are behind this breakthrough. These new windmills can turn into a breeze before it hits full force, and no matter what speed, produce a steady current. Blades swivel to snare even the smallest gust.
We don't need a hurricane to be able to produce wind electricity. And the machines are able to now extract a lot more energy from lower wind speeds, which means they're usable in a much broader geographic area.
Most of the world's wind power production is in California. This new system extends the possibility to 36 other states.
North and South Dakota together have enough wind resource to supply over half the U.S. current electricity consumption. That's based on technology that's within reach today.
Of course, the wind must blow when and where power is needed. But utilities are convinced these new models are capable of meeting 10% of our energy needs now and twice that much in 30 years.
There is many times more energy flowing above the ground with predictable wind year after year after year than there is fossil fuels in the ground.
And now, at last, there is a way to catch it cheaply. One day, the Great Plains could become the Saudi Arabia of wind, exporting power to the world. Far-fetched? The next generation of windmills will be tested in Iowa, near John Lorenzen's place. He's had his own windmills since 1926.
The neighbors thought I was crazy.
But Lorenzen never hooked up to the power company.
I never did give him a nickel.
Wind has produced all the electricity he's ever needed. The money he saved paid for his farm. Bob Dotson, NBC News, Woodward, Iowa.
That's nightly news for this Thursday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Up next on your 24-hour news source, new developments in the Larry Milton case.
The officers involved in Larry Milton's arrest exonerated by an internal police investigation. I'm Jim Strickland. An update next.
And a rousing reception at Drake for former hostage Thomas Sutherland. It's been a welcome home that he won't forget.
And state game wardens try to horn in on the profits of deer poachers.
These stories and more just ahead on News Center 13 at 6.
Fact. Ford will introduce its 93 Escort early this year, so your Ford dealer is clearing out all 92 Escorts. Fact. All 92s must go before the 93s arrive. Fact. Get 2.9% financing on every 92 Escort in stock. 2.9 for 48 months. Fact. It's the best time to save on America's best-selling compact car, and your last chance to get 2.9 financing. So if you don't get to your Ford dealer before the last of the 92 Escorts are gone, it could cost you thousands, and that's a fact.
Explore the wonderful world of antiques at the one and only original Cedar Rapids Antique Show and Collectors Fair downtown at the Five Seasons Center. If you appreciate beauty, if you're looking for the unique, if you're a serious collector or a dedicated browser, this is the show for you. There's something for everybody among the $5 million in antiques shown by 100 of America's top dealers. The Cedar Rapids Antique Show and Collectors Fair downtown at the Five Seasons Center. Friday and Saturday from 11 to 10, Sunday 11 to 5. Happy antiquing.
Who offers personal, professional health care for everything from colds and flu to heart disease and cancer?
The physicians at the Tower Medical Clinic. That's who.
What is the advantage of having a nationally respected medical university in Des Moines?
Receiving medical care from professors who teach tomorrow's physicians. That's what.
How can I get family health care and specialty care under the same roof?
By calling the Tower Medical Clinic at 279-WELL. That's how.
Live from WHO TV 13, where the news comes first 24 hours a day. John Bachman, Kim Kerrigan, Rick Silvestrini with sports, and meteorologist Gary Amble with the weather. This is News Center 13 at 6.
Last December, this man claimed 3 white Des Moines police officers had beat him during an arrest. This afternoon, a report as thick as 2 phone books said the officers did no wrong. Good evening. Another chapter tonight in the Larry Milton incident.
Des Moines police have wrapped up their internal investigation. A look now at what they found. The report backs the officers' claims nearly point by point, and it clears the 3 of any wrongdoing. The investigation also supports the officers' claim that Milton tried to go for one of their weapons. We have team coverage tonight on the investigation and the fallout.
We'll start with News Center 13's Jim Strickland, who obtained a copy of the police findings early this afternoon. Jim?
Well, John and Kim, you saw how thick that raw data was. It was all boiled down into this summary, and in it, the officers are exonerated. But even they admit the controversy is not yet behind them.
And I know this is probably going to continue to stretch on, and every time something happens down the road, it'll probably get brought up again. You know, at this point, we may be able to lay it to rest, but it's never going to be dead and buried.
Sergeant Joanne Pollack admits being cleared by the internal investigation does not end the uproar after allegations brought by Larry Milton, who claims to have been unnecessarily beaten during a public intoxication arrest. The police probe took 700 man-hours. Statements were taken from 59 witnesses. More than a third of them saw some portion of the arrest. In all, 1,000 pages of data has been collected. It all boiled down to this short summary. In it, Chief William Mulder reports, witnesses testified Milton had smoked crack. Milton had denied it. Milton was violent during his arrest and at the hospital where he was treated for his injuries. And Mulder concludes officers were justified in using a flashlight on Milton after mace and pain holds did not subdue him. But the chief admits, quote, this investigation will not satisfy those who refuse to accept the evidence. It does provide a clear accounting of the events associated with the arrest that are consistent with the physical evidence. Now, there is another report coming out next week, an independent investigation by the State Ombudsman's Office. Of course, we don't know at this point whether it will concur with the police internal findings. However, we do know, John and Kim, that all 1,000 pages of the raw data collected by the police have been sent to the ombudsmans, and they are perusing them.
Okay, thank you very much, Jim.
Police Chief William Mulder says he was confident the internal affairs investigation would support the officers.
But there's mixed reaction to the police report, and our team coverage continues now with News Center 13's Kathy Soltero. She joins us live from police headquarters with details. Kathy?
Well, John, city officials are satisfied with the internal investigation, but those who supported Larry Milton say it was just another form of injustice. Police displayed their findings, the stacks of papers and countless tapes from interviews into the investigation of the Larry Milton case. It took more than 700 hours to complete. But today, Police Chief Bill Mulder expressed confidence the findings were accurate.
The credibility of the police department's investigation is tested against the grand jury, the Ombudsman's Office, and the FBI. We made an effort to get our investigation public before the Ombudsman's Office so that you can use that as a measure to see if it is consistent or not consistent with what we have to say.
Mulder says the 3 officers involved, Sergeant Joanne Pollack and Officers Steve Strasser and Tom Heller, will return to their jobs immediately. Larry Milton gained a lot of attention when he accused officers of beating him severely with a flashlight while they were trying to arrest him. Milton's attorney, Alfredo Parrish, accuses the police investigation of missing critical information.
This police report, if it contained 5,000 pages, did not deal with the most critical issue.
Why did it take 3 police officers, the tight punishment that they inflicted on him, to bring him under control?
Milton supporter Kalanji Sadiq listened while police explained details of the internal affairs investigation. Afterwards, he told reporters he was not surprised.
I said from day one that this would be the decision that they rendered. I said that on January 1st of 1992. I didn't expect anything different. Had they said anything different, I would have been really surprised.
The city is still waiting for the Ombudsman's report as well as the findings of the Justice Department, but today city's manager Cy Carney said he was satisfied with the police investigation. Kim and John?
Okay, thank you very much, Kathy. 2 reports have been concluded into the Larry Milton beating incident. 2 more investigations continue. A report from the State Ombudsman's Office could be released early next week. An additional report will come from the FBI.
Another Des Moines police officer in trouble tonight. Officer Tony Knox is being charged with simple assault. The charges stem from an altercation between Knox and a 25-year-old Kevin Hurd at a Court Avenue bar. Now, Hurd claims he was attacked and had previous personal problems with Knox. Police say Knox was off duty at the time of the incident, and tonight he remains on the job. Meantime, one of the most ardent critics of the Des Moines Police Department has been arrested again. Police picked up James Hester yesterday at the Des Moines airport. A Scott County warrant charged Hester with alleged probation violation. Hester made the news recently when he asked to meet with the Des Moines mayor to talk about police sensitivity training.
Former hostage Thomas Sutherland has said that his memories of Iowa helped him get through his 77-month ordeal in Lebanon. Today, his dreams of Iowa turned into the real thing. Sutherland and his wife arrived in Des Moines late last night.
Oh, yeah, where are we? Oh. My goodness. What a new time.
This is Sutherland's first visit to our state since his release from Lebanon last fall. Sutherland says it's good to be back. He's a graduate of Iowa State, where he met his wife, Jean. This morning, Sutherland visited TV 13's Van and Connie show to say hi to viewers. He says he can't thank Iowans enough for all of their support. Thomas Sutherland's full schedule means even lunch hours are busy greeting friends. He talked about his ordeal at the First Presbyterian Church. And again, Thomas Sutherland's visit to Iowa is his first since being freed last November.
His presence is a special one to many people, including myself. I was in Germany last year when Thomas Sutherland was released. At the time, he was pale and gaunt. Today, it was clear that time has been a healer. A smiling Tom Sutherland greeted a group of reporters today at Drake University. It's obvious that freedom agrees with the former hostage.
We're very happy to be here, Jean and I, in Des Moines on the first day of our homecoming to Iowa, and it's been very nice so far.
Sutherland spoke mostly of life since his release last November.
The readjustment has been all downhill. We've been slowly trying to catch up on the mail. We were deluged by mail from all over the country, and if people have written to us and haven't heard from us, it's not because we're ignoring them. It's just that we haven't even read most of it yet.
The primary reason for Sutherland's visit to Iowa was a speech that he delivered to the Drake community this afternoon. A full house heard him talk about his time in captivity and his release. They heard how 6 years in captivity had changed him and how his world had changed while he was gone. But the Iowa State graduate made it clear one thing has not changed. And for that, Thomas Sutherland is grateful.
I arrived in Iowa in 1954, fresh from Scotland. And I have to say that I found Iowa to be a very, very welcome.